Okay. So I'll go through the client. Have you already filed, or do you need to start a new claim? Let's say they say that they just need to start a new claim. My next question is, when's the last time you worked? I'll go two different extremes with this, but what if the client says last Tuesday? And I ask, okay, are you still employed? And they're like, yeah, I'm still technically employed. Do you think you're going to be able to go back? And they say, probably not. But it's been like 4 days.
Yeah, that's a red flag.
Yeah.
It's a red flag unless they don't say probably not. They say definitely not.
If it's like a
you
heart
know.
attack or
Yeah,
something.
some trauma,
Yeah.
physical or mental, or it wasn't a really clean break, but it was something like, for the last 4 months, I've been missing a day a week at least, sometimes 2 days a week. I just couldn't do it any longer. Okay, well, it's not a really clean break, but it basically shows, everything was moving that way to where you couldn't work anymore. But it'd be something we definitely want to question you on. Kind of the same thing. You and I've talked about it, and I hate it in a hearing. Somebody's got in the medical records they've got a 30-year smoking 2 packs a day, and the judge asks them, are you still smoking? Oh, no, I quit. When did you quit? Yesterday.
Yeah.
That's really, really hard to, kind of go with that. And if you call me, 2 days or 3 days after you've quit a job, especially if you've quit a job, if it was on your initiative, you left, and then you call me 3 or 4 days later, I'm probably going to, we're probably going to question you on,
Yep.
okay, what happened? Whereas if it's been 3 or 4 days and you got fired, and then you say something like, again, like, what? Yeah, I got fired 3 months ago from a different place. I can't get along with my bosses. What happens? We have, altercations. Sometimes it's even physical. I actually got fired for shoving one of my bosses. Okay, that's something that's pretty significant.
Yep.
But if you left on your own initiative, and it's only been a few days, that's going to cause some red flags.
Yeah, and the main reason for that is if they've been out of work for 2 or 3 days, and then we take their case, best case scenario, it's going to be 6 to 8 months before we get an approval, and that's best case scenario.
Yeah.
More than
That's if we don't have to appeal.
yeah, the majority of cases unfortunately do get denied, and we have to appeal it. And so it's just you got to make sure the client knows what they're getting into. It's like, look, man, you've been out for 2 days now. We can help you if you don't think you're going to be able to go back to work for this amount of time, but it's not going to be like a couple weeks and then we're good to go. So that's usually, it doesn't seem like they understand how long of a process they're getting into. And then even then, the definition of disability through Social Security, you got to be expected to remain out of work for 12 months or longer.
Yeah.
And
12
so
consecutive months.
yeah, so if you're saying I've been out for a week, I don't know if I'm going to be able to go back to work. What I tell clients is, just to be clear, if you were able to find a new job and maintain it in 2 months or 5 months or 7 months even, that would disqualify you if you're able to maintain employment, because there's no 12-month period there.
Yeah, you have returned to the workforce within the 12-month period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So not kind of a red flag. I mean, it's more nuanced, but we got to make sure they understand how the process works.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't think anybody's trying to mislead us or anything like that. But like you said, we definitely want to let them know, okay, this is what you're looking at. Do you want to wait a few weeks to see if, either mentally or physically or whatever caused the separation, you to quit or you to get fired, or you to lose your job, however it was lost. Do you want to wait, a reasonable amount of time, which would be, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks, see if you can go back, and maybe you won't need us, and that's always a win-win for everybody.
Yep. Okay, so going down the list, I ask them if they need a new case or they've already filed. They say it's a new case. They say they've been out of work for about 6 months and they don't think they're going to be able to return to work. I ask them if they are already receiving any kind of other benefits. That's how I ask it. I just say benefits broadly. Mm-hmm. And then they'll tell me SNAP benefits. Okay, no problem. That doesn't disqualify you. Sometimes they'll say VA benefits. I have a 10% or a 30% rating. But if they say they're receiving SSI, and it's usually SSI, it's usually what happens is well, I got approved for SSI, but I need my disability, and I don't really know what exactly they're saying. So if the client is already receiving some type of Social Security disability, we can't help, right?
Exactly. And that's a great question or a great topic, because a lot of people they understand that there's two different titles, Title II, which is SSDI, and then there's Title 16, which is SSI. They understand that there's two different titles and that they've been approved for one of them. Why not the other one? Is the medical criteria the same? Absolutely. Absolutely identical. But the technical qualifications that's the biggie. And so you would see this both ways. You would say, I don't think a lot of people would be calling to try to get their SSI when they're already on SSDI.
Probably vice
Because
versa.
SSDI usually pays a higher amount because
Yep.
it's based on your earnings. But we see a lot that, I was approved for SSI, and I know that, disability is the same criteria for SSDI, and you're absolutely right. But you didn't work long enough to accrue the credits that you need to be insured, or that you were found disabled, 3 years after your insured date expired, and we can't help you. It's anytime that there's a technical issue, it sounds like I'm being flippant when I say this, and I'm not. But it's just the best way to illustrate it, and that is, I can make really good arguments. I cannot change math.
Yeah.
The math don't lie. And so, if you didn't, you didn't work, long enough to insure, or you worked so many years ago that your date last insured, your DLI, expired 4 years ago and you became disabled 2 years ago, it's technically impossible. There's nothing I can do, nothing I can say, no great argument I can make. There's nothing. I got nothing. And it's a technical denial. And a lot of times it's heartbreaking,
Yeah.
especially when these folks have horribly, disabling
When they're
impairments.
clearly
Yeah,
disabled, and we
it's-
could clearly win their case
and they're
based
getting
on that.
SSI, and it's a
Yeah.
fixed amount in every state. But you're right. We get those calls a lot, and then there's the calls that I'm getting $920 in SSI. I need more.
Yep. I was going to bring that up next. Yeah.
Nothing I can do. I get you approved, and I have no control on the amount of money you get a month. I have zero control. And once again, that for SSI, it's a fixed amount. And for SSDI, it's based solely on the amount of money you earned. Somebody who made $80,000 a year, their monthly check for SSDI is going to be a lot higher than yours if you made $15,000 a year. And there's nothing that we could do about that.
If you have a question about your disability case, give us a call at 615-453-9151 Monday through Friday, or click the link in the description of this video.